My name is Michael Mosher. I'm called Mosh, and today we're going to make some cabbage pie. The beauty of it is very basic. It's cabbage, salt, pepper, eggs, cheddar cheese, and a pie shell. It's a family favorite, and I've been doing this since I was 20 years old. We'll start by doing the pastry shell that we need to make. This you make ahead of time because you're going to let that chill before you roll it out. I've discovered over time that two flours work best. I use an all-purpose flour and I use a pastry flour. And it just makes the dough a little more delicate and light. And the most accurate way to measure when you don't have a scale is to sift it into a cup until it's overflowing and then carefully scrape off the top. So we have 1 cup of all-purpose flour and now we're going to get 1 cup of pastry flour. In this case it's an Italian 00. And you can see I'm doing this on a sheet of wax paper, so you can pick up the remainder and put it back in your container. We're going to have 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It calls for a pinch of sugar, and I have a spoon that says pinch on it. 2 pinches of sugar. These get incorporated. 1/4 pound of butter. When you chop butter into little sticks and little bites, it tends to stick together. So I dust it with flour just so it can break up and incorporate into this big bowl of flour a little bit easier. So I dust it with a little bit of flour, toss it around, and my cubes are loose now. My parents divorced when I was a sophomore in high school, so my mom got a job. I would get home from school, and this started before the cabbage pie actually, and there'd be a note on the counter saying, "Mike, plug in the crock pot, put the roast in, I'll be home at 6:30. So I'd get home about 3 o'clock or 3:30. And I'd turn on the TV set, and I tuned in and saw Julia Child for the first time. And back then, she was live from Boston. One day, I guess I was watching her do this stuff. I took over some cooking. My mom came home, and I had a cauliflower cheddar souffle made for her. And she said, "You're in charge of cooking from this point on." The next step here, I got my flour. I'm gonna drop in my butter, which you can see it's sort of loose. 3 tablespoons of vegetable shortening. You're going to break these little bits of butter into, should come out sort of like oatmeal. Next is 5 tablespoons of water, and it's chilled. Use your fingertips around here and you incorporate the water in, and you can still see it's sort of crumbly. You blend the recipe by using the palm of your hand where it's cooler, and you smear it, and you're incorporating that butter, the flour, but not really mixing it like you would with a mixer. So after the dough is collected, press it into a rough ball, and it's going to sit in the refrigerator for a good 30 minutes. While the pastry is in the refrigerator chilling, this is a good time to start the next part of the recipe, which is getting the cabbage prepared. So I'm probably going to use half this cabbage for the pie. Cut out the core, chop the cabbage sort of into 1/2-inch squares. So after the cabbage chopped, I'm going to cut about 1/2 cube of butter. This goes into a rather large pan. Put some salt and pepper in now. And this is to taste, maybe about a teaspoon of salt, maybe a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And we're going to put this on the stove and start to saute it. The main thing I want to do, of course, is melt the butter in here. And I really have found that I want to cook it just enough to get this cabbage to soften a bit. This is the cookbook that my brother brought home and passed it to me and said, essentially, let's make some recipes out of this. And this is George Bernard Shaw, which is a pretty famous author. There's a whole plethora of very simple recipes in here. Of course, the cabbage pie is one I sort of latched on to. It was a winner with the entire family. And now, when I get with family, it's my duty. You know, they all know how to make it, but they don't do it. I have to do it. What I've done with the recipe, original recipe, called for 2 eggs. I put in 4. The cheese I doubled also. It calls for, I think, 3/4 cup. I put in about probably a good 1.5 cups of cheese. This is called a moule, or it's a company called moule. It's French, but it's basically a hand-operated food processor. So after the dough is properly chilled, first thing I want to do is cut a chunk off. So this is going to be the bottom of our pie. Sprinkle out some flour, get your rolling pin, begin to flatten it out. And one rule I've learned from Julia again, you never roll to the end of your dough. Stop short of the ends and rotate the dough. Massage it a bit, get the other side. But I have found this recipe for pastry to be easy to make and pretty foolproof. If you watch Julia Child, she's very entertaining. Her approach is that mistakes are okay, recipes are guidelines, have a good time making your food. Well, I have to admit, sometimes I do get stressed out, and I think a lot of people do, but the important thing is to have fun. And the ultimate goal is to have people sit around at the table enjoying good food and conversation. And one of my adages is, every once in a while you may fail cooking, and it's okay to throw things away and start over or order a pizza. Pick up my pastry and roll it across. Again, I'm working quickly to try to keep this as cool as I can. The first layer to go in is hard-cooked eggs. I got my little handy slicer here, which makes life a lot easier. And you just layer them. Half the cabbage is going to go on and half your grated cheese. Then you repeat the whole thing. Some more egg, the cabbage, and you can't have too much cheese. So I'm going to set this aside and quickly roll out the top. Try to make it pretty, but ultimately it just has to taste good. Fold these edges over. We're going to cut a little bit of vents in the top, and it's ready to bake. So our oven's been preheated to 450 degrees. This will take about 30 minutes. The pie is finished to a nice golden brown, and we're ready to eat. Lovely. Let's give this guy a try. 2 bites, okay? The pie is sort of monochrome in color. So today we have some heirloom tomatoes seasoned up, and the tomatoes are a nice complement to the cabbage. This is my go-to recipe. It's every bit as good as it was back in 1973. I'm gonna keep eating.